Let me tell you something nobody wants to hear. You're not trapped by circumstances. You're trapped by choices you made voluntarily, repeatedly, for decades.
The problem with credit card debt is that you pay back so little of it. It's not like a personal loan. A personal loan, you take the personal loan and you know it's going to be paid off in 3 years or 5 years. It's there and you make your repayments. You have no plan to pay off your credit card. There is no plan to pay off a credit card.
And the worst part? You thought you were winning. The American middle class has perfected something remarkable, looking successful while hemorrhaging wealth. They drive cars worth more than their savings to jobs they tolerate.
$3,200 in car payments? Oh my gosh! What are you driving?
Oh, here we go. Yeah. This ain't even my car. Somebody let me use it, bro.
Buying things that depreciate faster than they can pay them off. This isn't prosperity. This is financial performance art with catastrophic consequences. Let me explain what I mean by money traps. These aren't accidents or bad luck. They're systematic, predictable patterns that destroy wealth generation after generation, and entire industries profit from your inability to see them. The middle class treats their house as their greatest investment. That's catastrophically wrong. Your primary residence isn't an investment. It's an emotional decision with compounding costs that will follow you for 30 years.
When you apply for a mortgage, you'll need to decide how long your amortization period will be. This is the number of years it will take you to pay off your mortgage in full. If your down payment is 20% of the purchase price of the property or more, you can choose up to a 30-year amortization. If you are putting down less than 20%, the maximum allowable amortization period drops to 25 years. And you'll also need mortgage default insurance.
Here's the mathematics nobody shows you at closing. Buy a $500,000 house with a 30-year mortgage at the current rate of 6.15%. You'll pay roughly $480,000 in interest alone. That's nearly double the purchase price. Almost $500,000 that could have generated returns for 3 decades, gone to a bank instead. You can find videos on the internet that breaks down the math in vivid detail, showing how mortgage interest compounds against you. Search for videos on home ownership costs, and you'll see the numbers they don't show you at the realtor's office. But it gets worse. That house demands constant feeding, property taxes rising annually, insurance increasing mysteriously, maintenance that never ends, roof replacement, furnace failure, kitchen remodels. Every year, $5,000 to $10,000 walking out the door. None of that appears in appreciation calculations. They tell you your house appreciated 3% annually. Congratulations, inflation was 3%. You broke even while paying interest and maintenance. That's not wealth creation. That's a treadmill with property taxes. Now, owning a home can make sense if you buy conservatively, in an area you'll stay long-term, at a price that doesn't strain your finances. But that's not how the middle class buys. They buy emotionally. They buy for status. They buy the maximum they can borrow because everyone in that transaction profits when you overpay. Nobody is incentivized to tell you that you're about to anchor yourself to 30 years of payments that will limit every other financial decision you make. If there's a faster way to destroy wealth than financing a depreciating asset, I haven't found it. The middle class has normalized car debt to the point where they don't question it anymore. They just assume you're supposed to have a car payment. You're not supposed to have anything. That's marketing talking, not mathematics. Americans currently owe $1.655 trillion in auto loan debt. The average monthly payment for a new car hit $748 in 2025. That's nearly $9,000 per year disappearing into a depreciating asset. Here's what actually happens. You buy a $40,000 car with a 6-year loan at 6% interest. Over those 6 years, you'll pay nearly $50,000. Meanwhile, the car depreciates 60% in just 5 years, according to Kelley Blue Book data. You just paid $50,000 for something worth $16,000. That's a $34,000 mistake. How is that possible, lifestyle inflation? It's financial napalm, and the middle class volunteers for it every 5 years because they're addicted to new car smell. And here's the devastating part. 5% of auto loans are now seriously delinquent, the highest rate since data collection began. People are literally losing cars they're still paying for because they financed status they couldn't afford. Every time the middle class gets a raise, they immediately increase their spending. New salary means new apartment. Promotion means new car. Bonus means vacation. The gap between income and expenses never widens. You can earn $70,000 and be wealthy if you spend $40,000 and invest the difference for 30 years. At $200,000, they have mortgages, car payments, private school tuition, and expensive hobbies. They earn more and needed more. The mathematics of wealth are brutally simple. Wealth equals the gap between what you earn and what you spend, multiplied by time. If that gap is zero, no amount of time will make you wealthy. If that gap is large, even modest income compounds into substantial wealth. The middle class has this exactly backwards. They think wealth comes from earning more. Every one of those is compounding in the opposite direction, taking money out of their future. They don't understand the mathematics. They don't grasp how powerful it is working for you or how devastating it is working against you. On the internet, you can find incredible wealth multiplier videos explaining this concept. They demonstrate that $1 invested at age 20 becomes $88 by age 65 at a 10% annual return.
Compound interest is when your bank pays you money on your balance the longer it sits in your account. Interest is paid on a regular basis, typically once a month. So each time you're paid interest throughout the year, you're earning more each time because your balance is growing.
That's the power of 45 years of compounding. But the middle class doesn't have patience. They can't imagine 30 years. They need results now. Every emergency becomes a financial crisis because they never built reserves. 42% of Americans don't have an emergency fund according to 2025 data. Even worse, 40% can't cover a $1,000 emergency expense using cash or savings. The median emergency fund for those who have one? Just $500. The middle class lives paycheck to paycheck even when they earn good money. They have no buffer, no cushion, no margin of safety. So when life happens, and it always does, they go into debt. Car needs repairs? $500 on the credit card. Furnace dies? $3,000 borrowed from somewhere. But the middle class never builds it because they can't delay gratification long enough. And the middle class is addicted to spending. The mathematics are simple. Save 10% of every paycheck until you have 3 to 6 months of expenses in a savings account. That's your emergency fund. Once you have it, life changes. Car repair becomes annoying but manageable. Medical bill becomes painful but survivable. Job loss becomes scary, but you have time to find something good instead of taking the first offer in panic. The middle class waits too long to start investing. By the time they get serious about investing, they're 45. They've missed 20 years of compounding. You can't recover that time. A 25-year-old investing $5,000 per year at 10% will have nearly $2 million at 65. A 45-year-old investing $5,000 per year at the same return will have $300,000. Same annual contribution. Starting 20 years earlier multiplies the result by 6. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between financial independence and working until you die. But young people don't think about 65. The middle class spends their 20s and 30s consuming. By the time they realize what they've lost, it's too late to catch up. They'll wear a $30 shirt and drive a 10-year-old car because they're not trying to impress anyone. The middle class confuses brand loyalty with intelligence. They'll pay twice as much for the same product with a different logo. Why? Status. They want to signal they can afford the good stuff. But the good stuff is often identical to the cheap stuff with better marketing. A $2,000 handbag doesn't hold your belongings better than a $100 one. It just announces you spent $2,000. To most people, that looks foolish, not successful. They coast, and coasting in the wrong direction still gets you somewhere, just not where you want to be. That's not sophistication. That's insecurity with a payment plan. The middle class isn't desperate. They're comfortable. And that comfort is exactly why they're trapped. They earn decent money, they have a house, they're not starving. By conventional standards, they're doing okay, so they don't change anything. They don't question whether okay is good enough. They don't calculate whether they're actually building wealth or just maintaining appearances. They coast, and the middle class falls into all of them simultaneously, then wonders why they can't get ahead. Now they're panicking. Now they're willing to take risks they shouldn't. Now they're desperate. all because they thought they were fine for 30 years when the mathematics said otherwise? The real trap isn't any single financial mistake. It's the combination. It's buying too much house and financing a car and carrying credit card debt and not investing and lifestyle inflation and keeping up with neighbors and not understanding compound interest. Each trap alone is manageable. Combined, they're devastating. The middle class falls into all of them simultaneously, then wonders why they can't get ahead. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. The middle class chooses to be trapped, not consciously, but through thousands of small decisions that prioritize comfort, status, and immediate gratification over long-term wealth. They know what they should do. They don't do it because doing it requires sacrifice, discipline, and delayed gratification. It requires looking less successful than their peers for decades. It requires ignoring social pressure. It requires thinking independently when everyone around them is doing the opposite. Most can't do that, so they stay trapped. The escape is simple. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference. Avoid debt. Ignore your neighbors. Think long-term. Be patient. That's it. 6 principles followed consistently for decades. Anyone can do it. Almost nobody will because simple isn't easy, and the middle class prefers easy over effective. Financial freedom is available to anyone willing to be uncomfortable enough to achieve it. The question isn't whether the traps exist. The question is whether you're willing to avoid them. The middle class doesn't just fall into these mistakes once. They repeat them in cycles, generation after generation. Parents who made these mistakes raise children who make the same ones because financial wisdom isn't taught, it's caught. And if you're catching it from people who are broke, you'll learn to be broke. I've watched families repeat the same patterns for 3 generations. Same mistakes, different interest rates. The middle class treats financial education like it's optional. But you're making financial decisions every single day. And if you don't understand the mathematics of those choices, you're making them blind. That's not living, that's gambling. And that's exactly why most people will never escape the traps. Financial freedom isn't about luck, inheritance, or market timing. It's about making the right boring decisions consistently over a very long time. The middle class can't do this. They need excitement, they need novelty, but wealth is built by doing almost nothing. Spending less than you earn, investing the difference, waiting decades. No excitement, no novelty, just patience and discipline. But you don't have to be most people. You can decide today to stop falling into these traps, to stop financing depreciating assets, to stop inflating your lifestyle, to stop competing with neighbors, to start investing early, to start understanding compound interest, to start thinking long-term. At Machine Minds, your opinion matters to us, so please feel free to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments section below.